科技咧就好似生命冇咗水一樣，生存唔到。
做生意首先要諗自己覺得過唔過癮先，冇科技係永遠都唔會有創新嘅。
Dream it possible， 唔好俾自己有框框，早啲同銀行傾你個計劃，你會早啲完成你嗰個目標。
即上恒生商業銀行 YouTube 頻道睇足本分享，實踐創業夢，將不可能變可能。恒生最新商業戶口最快3天開戶，全程網上辦妥，立即上網或致電查詢啦。
Welcome to the HKTDC Entrepreneur Day 2021. During today's event, simultaneous interpretation services in English, Cantonese, and Mandarin will be provided. You may select the audio channel next to the video frame, and you're also welcome to raise questions through the Q&A box. Selected questions will be asked at the Q&A session towards the end. Without further ado, the session Tackling the Pain Points in Online Businesses will now begin. Please welcome our first speaker of the session, Ms. Sarah Roden, Head of Operations, APAC, Riskified.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. I'm Sarah Roden, the Director of Operations in Riskify's Shanghai office. I've been working with Riskified for over 5 years, getting a front row seat to our IPO journey. And I'm happy to be here today to share a bit of that journey with you. Today, Riskified is a publicly held company traded on the New York Stock Exchange. We have 650 people, but every time we quote this number, it's immediately outdated because we're growing so quickly. So now I think we're closer to 700. Over 50 of our clients are also publicly traded companies. You might recognize some of those logos on the right. And over 98% of our clients stay with Riskified year over year. This is a statistic that I'm particularly proud of because I've been on the account management team for over 5 years. We've been very fortunate to experience rapid growth since the company was founded nearly 10 years ago. Riskified started in Tel Aviv in 2012. 2 years later, we had scaled up to 40 employees. 2 years after that, in 2016, Riskified opened its New York office, its first office outside of its headquarters in Tel Aviv. This is when I joined the company. I was one of the first people on the ground in New York. In 2020, Riskified opened its office in Shanghai. So I found myself yet again being the first employee in an additional Riskified office. And in 2021, we went public on the New York Stock Exchange just recently in July. Another way to look at Riskified's growth is geographically. We started in Tel Aviv, expanded to New York, and then opened in Shanghai. Now we're rolling out offices in Mexico, Brazil, Europe, additional sites across Asia, and Australia. Looking at Riskified's growth in pretty graphs and charts makes it look like it was all really easy and smooth and happened organically, but there were growing pains. I know this because I was one of the first people hired in the New York office in 2016. And when I first stepped into the office, it looked like the photo on the right, completely bare with some trash. I realized pretty quickly that although it was not in my job description, I was going to have to help spruce up the office, simply because if I didn't do it, there was nobody else there. So it would just be me sitting in a miserable office. So quickly I went out and like a hero, picked up some chairs, and I immensely upgraded my seating situation from sitting on the floor to sitting in a chair. Shortly thereafter, we upgraded to some tables, and soon enough, there were 6 of us, as you see on the left, putting together makeshift happy hours on Fridays with some snacks and drinks and just taking time to unwind together at the end of every week. I look back at this time very fondly. In 2016, Riskified was already a well-funded office. We had a site in Tel Aviv full of talented and dedicated employees. But across in New York City, there was still the sense of starting something from the beginning. But at the same time, we were starting something from the beginning in New York, but we had this sense of security from Tel Aviv, knowing that we were fully supported by an office full of our peers in Tel Aviv who gave us their full backing to make sure our New York office succeeded. At this point, you're probably asking, what was my role specifically? I was the first account manager on the ground in New York City. This was not a job I knew existed before when I was in university, when I was looking for jobs. So I'm very thankful that I've fallen into it. Being an account manager at different companies can mean different things at different companies. At Riskified, being an account manager means ensuring that our clients are getting the full value from Riskified once they sign on. I love this role because you get to be in the middle of everything. On the client side, you really need to dig deep into understanding how the client operates and understanding what are their goals, not only in terms of their goals for using their product, but their long-term goals as a company, and how can Riskified help them achieve that? On the internal Riskified side, you're understanding what's on the client's roadmap and you're understanding what's on Riskified's roadmap and how this can help the client. So because the account managers are straddling the client's world and Riskified's world day in and day out, account managers can really influence Riskified's roadmap to build things that will drive the most value for the clients. This client-centric approach works for us, and today Riskified partners with hundreds of merchants across many geographies and industries. We're able to provide value for merchants selling everything from luxury fashion products to plane tickets to household furniture. At this point, you're probably asking yourself, what does Riskified actually do? Let me explain it this way. If you've ever seen a charge on your credit card for something you did not buy, like a TV, for example, you call your bank and you explain that you did not buy this TV. The bank says, okay, let me take care of that for you. They'll refund the purchase and they'll often cancel your credit card and send you a new one. What's happening there on the merchant side looks a little bit different. The bank is taking the funds from the merchants and giving it back to you. This makes sense from the customer side, but it can be very hurtful for the merchant. The merchant has lost the money for the TV because the money has been taken from them and given back to you. They've lost the actual TV because they shipped this TV to someone, it just wasn't you. And they've hurt their reputation because now you have a negative experience associated with this store. What is the merchant supposed to do about this? How can they stop fraudsters from using stolen credit cards on their site? This is where Riskified comes in, because our mission to empower businesses to realize the full potential of e-commerce by making it safe, accessible, and frictionless. So there's this underlying tension for merchants between creating the easiest buying process possible in order to maximize sales versus ensuring that the merchant and consumers are protected from fraud and abuse. On top of that, merchants must adhere to changing regulations and manage relationships with the banks and the payment gateways. It's really difficult for merchants to find the right balance here. If a merchant injects too much friction into the buying process, you lose sales. Customers will drop off before they make a purchase. If there's too little friction in the buying process, you're inviting fraud. And when you're inviting fraud, you're reducing your profits. Listed here are many of the challenges that merchants must deal with in this space. The friction and the lost sales, like we mentioned, policy abuse, like if you're trying to offer a discount for new customers, but really you have old customers creating 20 new accounts just to take advantage of a discount. payment declines, which aren't even in the merchant's control, it's controlled by the bank. Account takeovers, having malicious actors trying to hack into the accounts, whether it's for loyalty points or stored credit card information on your site. Chargebacks, which is that transfer of money I mentioned, when a merchant has to repay the customer because the charge was not authorized on their card. All of this translates into significant overhead costs for the merchant. So merchants partnering with Riskified are able to help mitigate fraud and eliminate customer friction, essentially finding that ideal balance between the sales and the friction. So we're able to help our merchants grow revenue by increasing their approval rates and eliminating friction and drop-off. We're able to help our merchants secure accounts. We can identify ATO attempts, account takeover attempts, and block them, giving merchants the confidence to offer stored credit card information or offer loyalty points on their site. We're able to help merchants protect policies, preventing abusers from taking advantage of store policies, like what I mentioned before of offering a discount for new customers only to have old customers creating 20 new logins just to take advantage of it. We offer a liability shift. We stand behind our decisions. So if we tell a merchant that this is a legitimate order and they should accept it, we encourage the merchant to accept it. If we are wrong and that order was actually fraudulent, Riskified takes the financial liability for that order. At the end of the day, all of this helps our merchants reduce costs because a fee for Riskified is typically lower than the aggregated fraud cost the merchant was experiencing before coming to Riskified. So all of those pain points and benefits I mentioned are wrapped up into 4 products listed here. These products were built over time because Riskified understood that our clients needed them, and rolling out these products have also helped Riskified continue to grow over time. Remember that this growth and this product suite did not happen overnight. It took years of learning from our clients and listening to our clients to ensure we were driving value for them and meeting their needs along the way. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And feel free to email me at sarah.roden@riskified.com if there's anything else I can help with. Thanks.
E-commerce is experiencing incredible growth, and every merchant wants to create a simple and frictionless shopping experience. But simplicity is difficult to achieve. It's difficult because selling anything online involves unique risks that connect back to fraud. We've spent the past 8 years creating a world-class machine learning platform to solve these problems. It has incredibly rich transaction data networked across multiple merchants, allowing it to adapt in real time to evolving fraud patterns.
Riskified helps merchants increase their sales by more than 20% by allowing them to accept more transactions than they would otherwise be able to before Riskified.
Riskified helps merchants massively reduce their operational costs for fraud by more than 60%.
We capture more than 100 different data points across merchants' environments from their website to their backend systems.
It's basically a flywheel effect because the more data that we gather, the better the accuracy is going to get, which means we can bring more value to more customers, which means we're going to get more data.
In total, we have more than 1 billion historical transactions in our platform from hundreds of the world's largest merchants.
We see ourselves really as this platform that can help merchants with all these decisions that can optimize the customer journey.
Today, we process transactions for consumers in almost every country in the world. We are truly a global business managing global e-commerce risk and helping our merchants reach their business goals.
It's this dedicated approach to e-commerce risk, our robust machine learning platform, and the network effects in our business model that makes it difficult for any single merchant to achieve the same level of performance without using our platform. Our IPO is just another marker on our journey as Riskified sets out to empower businesses to realize the full potential of e-commerce by making it safe, accessible, and frictionless.
Thank you, Sarah, for this insightful sharing. I'm sure I can already see how Riskify is bringing so much value to the merchants in terms of sales growth. Well, next up, we will have Mr. Roy Wang, co-founder and CEO, Return Helper Limited, to share his view on this topic. So, good afternoon, Roy. Could you hear us? Yes. Excellent. The floor is yours.
About myself, my name is Roy, co-founder and CEO of Return Helper. I'm from Hong Kong. In the past 12 years, I've spent time on various e-commerce companies in different roles and different regions. And it includes e-commerce marketplace, e-commerce software, and e-commerce logistic company. And for that reason, I've heard of stories after stories that online retailers losing a lot of fortune and profit from online returns. And that's why I built Return Helpers to help online retailers to tackle one of the biggest pain points of online business return. So to begin with, let's do some numbers. And this is the global market return scenario. So let's talk about the numbers from 2020. We all know that due to the pandemic, the e-commerce market has grew really, really fast last year in 2020. In just the US market itself, the market has grew almost 40% year on year, all the way to more than 800 billion US dollars. And if we just look at the cross-border e-commerce market from China to the US, it also grew more or less the same, 40% year on year to over 170 billion US dollars. So it is really fast. But if we take a closer look at the return within the e-commerce market, we actually see that both the return value as well as the total cost of online return almost grew 100% year on year to around 100 billion US dollars. So it is actually telling us that the return is actually growing faster than the e-commerce market itself. And it is definitely a pain point for online business. Because for online business, you will have to bear the high logistic costs. You will also have to bear high operation costs. And last but not the least, the rates of return merchandise value. So if you look across different categories, there are always some categories that are top of the top return rate categories. If you are selling clothing, footwear, or beauty products, we consider it as a fashion item. It is always enjoying the highest return rate. It could be as high as 46%. The second one, electronics or home and garden products, they also enjoy high return rate. So if you are businesses fall into these product categories and you are about to go online, you better prepare with the best return strategy. And speaking of the cost of online returns, it doesn't just mean the return logistic. You definitely have to bear the logistic cost, but it is actually more than that. You will also have to be pay for the labor cost. It is going to cost you some resources to do customer service for return, to do pick and pack for your return merchandise. That will also involve reselling costs, because that will also cost you some resources to resell, to restock your return merchandise. And the last one is the damage of your return merchandise. Some of the return might actually go back to you and it is totally without commercial value. And it is actually a big loss to your business. So return is inevitable. The more you sell, the more return we will have. So here we put together some ideas and help you to tackle return in your online business. The first one is to set a clear and customer-centric return policy in your web store. According to the study, 67% of the online shoppers actually check the return policy before they make a purchase. And also there are around 73% of the online shoppers will actually make a difference. They will actually depend on their first purchase and the return experience to decide whether they will shop again on your web store. And all these will actually affect your retention program and loyalty program. So if you don't have a clear and customer-centric return policy, probably you will be losing your customers. And then don't forget that actually it is 5 times more expensive for you to acquire new customers than to retain an existing one. So if you don't really have a customer-centric return policy in your web store, at the end of the day, you might have to spend more money to acquire new customers to your business. And the second one is to optimize your return process. Again, it is all about the convenience in your web store and good communication with your customers. You should have a clear and like you should put your return policy in and clear on your web store, and it is easy for your shoppers to view it. And you should also have an online portal interactive with your online buyers. Therefore, you will have spent less physical, like your customer service agent, to communicate with your online buyers. And my advice here is also include like how you should collect as much information as possible throughout the return journeys. It is very important for you to do analysis. For example, for the return reason, if you can collect all the reasons for each of your return, it is actually critical for you to make your future marketing or business strategy for your web online business. You can also prevent actually unnecessary return from your future business. And the last thing is the notification of your return status. This is actually become more and more important to online business because nowadays, especially when you are doing global e-commerce, you might have buyers around the world, and cross-border return could actually for now take up to 4 weeks. So it is important for you to keep your buyer updated about the return logistic and the refund status. The buyer will be expecting a refund right after they ship out the product back to you. And if it is taking too much time without any notification, the buyer may be leaving you poor feedback, or at worst case scenario, they may complain to the bank. And the number 3, flexible return offering. Nowadays, online shoppers are always expecting more. If you have shopped from, for example, Tmall from China or Amazon from the US, most of the time you actually enjoy free shipping and hassle-free return policy. This is really about like your competitors, what are they doing in the market. So if you are selling into US, if you build your own web store on Magento or Shopify, you are actually competing against Amazon. So if you do not offer as good as actually good service as possible, you are losing your business to Amazon. And automatic credit to card, since you are doing online businesses, most of your buyers will be actually checking out with their credit card or some online payment gateway like PayPal or Square. So once they make the return and the return is completed, they actually expect to have the full refund in real time. So it shouldn't take so much time for you to issue the refund to your buyers. And the last 2 things is about easy to print label and easy to follow procedures. For the shipping label, actually for now, I would suggest label-less return solution. In China, Hong Kong, or in the US and Europe, there are so many alternative ways to do return. And for some of the situations, you can actually offer label-less return where your consumers can just turn on their smartphone with a QR code. They can actually complete the whole return process in the post office or a logistics center without actually physically having a printer in their home. Because according to my study, over 50% of the household in the US or in Hong Kong, actually they don't have the printer at home. So if you really require your buyer to print a label at home to complete the return process, you are actually raising the bar for return and making it uneasy to follow the return procedure. Just like Sarah from Riskified shared in the previous presentation, a consumer can really just make a phone call to the bank or card issuer or a payment gateway like PayPal and have the payment reversed if they find a problem in their online transaction. So if you are really making it difficult to return, it is definitely a problem for the view of the payment gateway or card issuer. And if your buyer is really make a complaint to them, it is very likely your transaction will be reversed. And as a business owner, you will have a total loss. So the last advice is to set your e-commerce strategy. Some of you might think that you sell brand new items, you have your own brand, you work with your own manufacturers, you always sell brand new products. That is totally true. But since you are going online and the more you sell, the more return you will have. So for the used return merchandise, if you are really doing a good business on your online shop or marketplace account, at the end of the day, you will end up having a lot of returns, and most of them are actually used. So you really have to find a way to liquidate your return merchandise. So my advice here is that, for example, in the US, you can go with like liquidation.com or Bstock, this kind of B2B liquidation channels. With this, you can easily liquidate your return used or even broken return merchandise in bulk, and you can get some money back. For example, in Hong Kong, you can also rely on some marketplaces like Carousel to liquidate your return merchandise one by one. So with this solution, you are able to resell your return merchandise and to recover the highest commercial value of your return merchandise. And in some rare cases, your return merchandise might have no commercial value at all. Maybe they are totally broken, or you just don't want to put it back to the secondary market. My advice is to find to work with a recycler in the local market. For example, in the US, for some unused return merchandise, you really cannot just throw it away because it is actually against the government policy. So you really have to get a recycler to recycle your return merchandise in an environmental friendly way. And with this, for online brands, we particularly advise them to do this to promote your brand. A lot of the online shoppers actually prefer to shop from the brands go with ESG initiatives. So if you are really doing recycling for all of your return merchandise, it could be your marketing strategy for your online business. And at the end, it will bring positive impact to your business. Yeah, so here's the takeaways. Let me wrap this up. Return is inevitable. So the more you sell, the more return you will have. So you should have a clear and customer-centric return policy for your web store. You should offer flexible return, and you should also have an optimized return experience for your buyers. And at the end, even though you have slightly more return from your online business, don't worry about it. If you have a good e-commerce strategy, you will be able to recover the highest commercial value from your return merchandise, and you will also be making a positive impact to your business. All right, that's the end of my presentation, and that's all. Thank you. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Roy. That was an excellent presentation you just had there. I mean, as a customer myself, having a good and clear return strategy will surely increase my desire to actually shop online. But then please stay online as well, because we'll move on to the Q&A section right now. Now, unfortunately, due to early appointment, Sarah will not be able to join us at the Q&A section. But for our audience viewing online, you're still welcome to raise questions for Roy through the Q&A box next to the video frame. So Roy, we all know that business now, e-commerce is definitely a global thing. So do you currently have any plans to expand your business in other regions or countries that you can share with us?
Definitely, yes. Currently, we really focus on Hong Kong and mainland China, but we have just set up our branch in Singapore, and we are going to expand our service to the region of Southeast Asia. Currently, we work with partners and clients in the US and Europe, UK, and we will be having more business in the Middle East and also Canada. That is also my plan.
And speaking of expansions, we've all seen that how pandemic has actually shifted the brick and mortar way of shopping into a rather O2O, for example, online to offline pickup, or even entirely online shopping, like what you're doing. How do you think this trend is going to play out in the future? Is it gonna return to the normal way, or do you think there will be another disruptive way of e-commerce coming in the future?
I truly believe that in the future, people will actually mention e-commerce, the term e-commerce less, because online and offline will merge together. And I think we can just simply call it the new retail. For example, for return, it doesn't simply mean that if you shop online, you will have to return it online. Basically, lots of return, the retailers, they sell it online, but they do return. They can actually enable their buyers to return it offline in their brick and mortar store. So you can see that even from return, you see that the merchant strategy is to merge the online into offline. So I think people will actually just call it new retail in the future.
All right, a switch of topic, because our audience has another question here. Having worked with so many retailers with your company, what do you think is the biggest challenge for operating this return delivery service nowadays?
Well, when it comes to the biggest challenge, I would say a lot of the retailers, they strongly believe in their brands and their products. They think their products are actually perfect. They do not expect any return. I would simply think that it is, I would have to say, return, it doesn't mean that you don't have a good product quality, because actually lots of the return reason is actually maybe the buyer, they simply change their mind, or delay of the shipping. It is nothing related to your product quality. So even though you are selling the best quality in the product categories, you really should have your return strategy in place to protect yourself. Especially if for e-commerce, we are easily to sell globally. In some countries, for example, in the US and in Europe, unlike Hong Kong or China market, the government policies really protect the buyers. Even though the buyers, they buy the product, and after 30 days, the government policy still enable them to return. It is actually the local government policy, but for our merchants, if they are based in Hong Kong or China, they really put themselves into the situation in Hong Kong and China, so that they just simply think that they can always reject the return. But that is totally not true in some of the market like the US and Europe. Yes, it is just some differences or culture difference, or even government policy differences on different regions. I think that is actually one of the biggest challenge for us as a service providers. We really have to deliver this message to the retailers and even do some education and tell them you just cannot do it the same way that you do it in Hong Kong and in the US and Europe.
Well, we speaking of challenges, we do actually have another question related to that. And we've seen that in recent months, the supply chain bottlenecks that we're all mentioning about the delay of ships, the lack of ships, as well as the surging labor costs, has definitely been a huge pain point for e-commerce retailers online as well. Well, I'm sure that would also be a question in terms of how you complete your last mile delivery for the returns as well. How do you think this supply chain bottlenecks has affected your business, or in fact has affected your client's business, or how does it reduce the growth in this respect?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so the challenge from the current global supply chain is a big impact for all of the players in the e-commerce industry. No matter you are doing returns or logistic, last mile shipping, or you are manufacturers or other service providers, I think more or less you have limited supply to sell. So as a result, you have less business. But for us, we do see some positive impact. Like I shared in the presentation, online retailers should really make good use of their return merchandise and put it on secondary market to sell. With the current challenge of the supply chain, actually the demand for used or broken items are actually going up. because the buyer, they may not have the choices for brand new products due to the shortage from the supply chain challenge. So that for now, our clients, if they are going to resell their return used merchandise on the secondary market, they are able to sell it at a higher price. Means they are actually able to recover higher commercial value from return. So it is actually good for them, for us as well.
I'm definitely glad to hear that it has actually helped with your business. But apart from the supply chain bottlenecks as a global issue, you did mention about ESG in your presentation just now, which I'm sure that is also part of a huge topic or rather hot topic in recent days. And then you did mention that incorporating ESG into your business strategy would also be a good marketing opportunities as well. But we all know that ESG in Hong Kong is rather a new or emerging concept. What do you think is the biggest challenges for Hong Kong e-commerce companies trying to go online, but as well as incorporating these ESG values into their return policies?
I think the biggest challenge for the retailers in Hong Kong is like they don't have so much choices for them to do. Like for example, in the market, in some other mature market, there are just so many service providers to provide ESG related service to them. Like all the way from like eco-friendly shipping to recycling to distribution, there are just so many choices. In Hong Kong, I think there are actually less choice, or they have to do it themselves. That is the biggest challenge for them. Even though they really want to go the ESG way, but they just don't have the way to do it. And from my point of view, from my business, we do see that online brands, if they do it well and they get the right ESG strategy into their business, we do see some positive impact on their business, not just about the sales, but also about their margin. If they can do it well, they can actually sell it at a higher price because some buyers really use it as a prerequisite when they go shopping online. So it will really, really help your margin, and it will actually promote your brand in the marketing perspective.
Well, I'm definitely sure that customers are more aware of as they are more aware of the ESG concepts. I'm sure that will be also part of the consideration when they're trying to make purchases, and having that as in that return policy will surely definitely help drive the growth. And speaking of growth, we just mentioned about expanding to new markets for your company. Could you share more about your future plan for Return Helper? What will be your directions for growth in the future?
Definitely, yeah. As a matter of fact, we just closed our first round of funding from a famous marketplace player in the region. So we really have to go back last year. This year, we actually grew more than 100%. Our revenue actually topped $2 million. But with the new funding coming in, we are going to hit 4 times growth. 4x next year, we are going to hit $8 million revenue next year, and so we do have an aggressive growth plan for next year and onward. Like I shared before, we are going to Southeast Asia. We will also be in Middle East, and for our current market, we are also going to work with more partners, including logistic partners, service providers. Like I said, ESG is also a key initiative for us. So we are going to work with more recyclers and service providers in the ESG category. This is all into our plan.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on the funding as well. Well, I do think that as e-commerce becomes a more and more major way of actually shopping online, and I'm sure that in Hong Kong, especially those emerging markets, it will surely have increased demand for these return policy services that your company is actually providing. And unfortunately, because time is short, that will be the end of the Q&A session. But once again, thank you everyone for your, thank you Roy, as well as Sarah for your presentation and all the answers that I'm sure our audience has definitely learned a lot from it. But please also feel free to scan the QR code on the screen to send us your feedback and stay connected with our Smart Advisor to explore any possibilities. Our next session will start at 2:30 p.m. We'll see you later.